You don't have to come. I'll just tell everyone you were tired. Nothing in those 2 sentences is a demand. And you are already getting dressed. That is manipulation. Most of it looks exactly like that. One sentence that hands you permission and hands you a debt in the same breath. You could not repeat those lines to a friend and get a reaction. And that is exactly why they work. There is no pressure in the room to point at. The pressure got installed inside you. And from then on, it does the asking for free. Falling for this has nothing to do with intelligence. You are not gullible. You are not weak. Intelligence was never the part being used. What got used is the part of you that hates leaving somebody disappointed. And that part is not a defect you can have removed. It is the best part of you, pointed at the wrong person. Here is the lie you were handed, and it came off a screen. Movies, thrillers, true crime, and about 10,000 short videos about red flags. They all taught the same cartoon. A manipulator looks like a villain. Cold eyes, a smirk. A voice pitched low for effect. And anybody paying attention will see it coming. So you went hunting for the wrong animal. You watched a documentary about a con man and thought, I would have noticed. You scrolled a list of 7 red flags at 11 at night and slept fine because your person has none of them. You met somebody warm and helpful and filed them under safe because warm was never on the checklist. That is the trap. Real manipulation does not feel like being attacked. It feels like being chosen. So here is what this video actually is. 4 moves that work on almost everyone, in the order a skilled person uses them, not so you can use them, so that the next time one is used on you, something in the back of your head quietly says, I know this one. And the 4th move is the one you will recognize from inside your own house. The first move is the debt. Somebody does something for you that you never asked for. They cover your shift. They bring you coffee exactly how you take it. They defend you in a meeting you were not even in. It feels wonderful. And a tiny invoice prints somewhere behind your ribs. Robert Cialdini, a psychologist at Arizona State University, spent his career studying influence. And he put reciprocity at the top of the list. The human rule that says a favor must be returned is so strong that it works even when the favor was unwanted, even when it was tiny, and even when we know exactly what is happening. Waiters proved it with a single mint. Drop 1 mint with the check and tips go up. Have the waiter pause. Look at the table and say, for you nice people, an extra mint and tips jump over 20%. 1 free mint. The debt machine runs that cheap. Now here is the difference that matters. Because generosity is real, and this is not it. A generous favor is finished when it is done. A strategic favor is never finished. It gets referenced. It comes back next month in a different conversation, wearing the words after everything I have done for you. When you hear that sentence, understand what it means. The coffee was never coffee. The coffee was a down payment. By the way, this is why an unwanted favor from the wrong person makes your skin crawl. The gift that felt like a hook was a hook. Your discomfort was not rudeness. It was your accounting department flagging the invoice. And once you have accepted a small thing, the second move opens. Because small is a door. Watch how it works. Can you look over 1 paragraph of my essay? Sure. Actually, can you check the whole page? Fine. Honestly, you write so much better than me. Could you just clean up the ending? And 3 Tuesdays later, you are writing the essay. In 1966, 2 Stanford researchers, Jonathan Freedman and Scott Fraser, went door to door asking homeowners to put a huge ugly sign in their front yard that said drive carefully. Almost everybody said no. But another group had been asked 2 weeks earlier to display a tiny 3-inch sticker with the same message. Of the people who took the sticker, 3 out of 4 later said yes to the enormous sign. The sticker did not change their yard. It changed their self-image. I am the kind of person who helps with this. And once that sentence is installed, every bigger request stops being a new decision. It is just you, staying consistent with you. Apps run this exact play on you every single day. Nobody signs up for $200 a year. You sign up for a free week. The free week turns you into a person who uses the thing, and canceling stops being a decision about money. It becomes a small identity crisis. The manipulator is not really asking you for favors. They are asking your self-image to defend itself, which is why saying no feels so weirdly expensive. Refusing the 10th request feels like breaking a promise the first 9 made. Here is your exit, and it costs 1 sentence. A new request is a new decision. You are allowed to have helped 9 times and still say no to 10. Once the debts and the small yeses are in place, most people are already steerable. For the ones who are not, there is the third move, the guilt trip, and the delivery system is almost never words. It is production design. The sigh from the next room, pitched just loud enough to be heard. The dish is done at a volume that has a message in it. The fine, typed alone, with a period at the end like a slammed door. The whole point is that nothing was said, so nothing can be answered. If they said you never make time for me, you could talk about it. Instead, the accusation arrives as weather, and you find yourself confessing to a crime that was never read out loud. Guilt itself is healthy. It is the alarm that fires when we hurt someone, and people who feel none of it are genuinely dangerous. But listen for the difference, because it is the whole game. Healthy guilt says, "Come here, we need to fix something." Manufactured guilt says, "Look what you did to me. Now guess the sentence." One is a conversation, the other is a toll booth. And I will be honest with you about this move. It is the one I have caught myself using. The slightly heavy silence after somebody cancels plans, hoping they feel it. Most of us learned that trick at a kitchen table before we could spell manipulation. Doing it once in a bad week makes you human. Running it as a system makes you the person this video is about. And it scales up with the holidays. Thanksgiving is the Super Bowl of manufactured guilt, the favorite dish you did not take seconds of, noticed. The cousin's kids compared to you out loud in the kitchen. The long pause after somebody asks when you are visiting next. Timed so the whole table can hear you not answer. Nobody at that table would call it manipulation. It is just how the family talks. That is exactly the point. These moves get handed down like recipes. The person aiming a sigh at you probably had one aimed at them for 30 years. Understanding that will not make the sigh less annoying. It will make it less powerful. Because you finally know what you are looking at. The test is what happens when you name it. Ask a normal person, "Are you upset with me?" And they will eventually tell you the truth. Ask a manipulator, and you get the 2 most radioactive words in the English language. "I'm fine." Now the 4th move, and this is the one that holds people for years. Hot and cold. Monday, they are sunshine. They laugh at your jokes. They touch your shoulder. The room is warm. Thursday, frost. 1-word answers, eyes that slide past you. And you cannot find what you did, because there is nothing to find. So your brain does what brains do with an unsolved problem. It works overtime. You reread your own texts like a detective. You draft 2 versions of a message and send the safer one. You start performing for a verdict that never gets announced. The machinery underneath this was mapped by B.F. Skinner, the Harvard psychologist, in his research on reinforcement. He found that rewards given predictably create mild, steady behavior. But rewards given at random create the most frantic, persistent, unbreakable behavior ever measured in a lab. It is the engine inside every slot machine in Las Vegas. Nobody stands for 6 hours in front of a vending machine, because a vending machine pays out every time. The randomness is the addiction. So, when their warmth finally comes back, on day 4, for no visible reason, the relief that floods you is enormous, and your brain quietly files the lesson. Their mood is the jackpot. Keep pulling the lever. Hear this part clearly, because it is the sentence that unlocks the whole cage. That feeling you call walking on eggshells is not sensitivity. It is a training program, and you are enrolled in it. The wild part is that the person running it often does not fully know they are running it. They just know that going cold works. It has worked since they were 7. Nobody keeps a tool that does not work. And it is not only romance. The same lever runs entire offices. A boss who is warm in the morning and unreachable by afternoon trains a whole team to read moods before anybody reads email. People start timing requests. Is he in a good mood today? Ask her after lunch, never before. An entire department quietly reorganizes its day around one person's weather. That is thousands thousands of dollars of salary spent on forecasting instead of working. If you have ever messaged a coworker the words, "What mood is he in?" before walking into a room, you were not gossiping. You were checking the radar, so now you know the 4 moves. And this is where I have to stop and turn the camera around, because there is one thing left, and it is not about them. Somewhere in the last few minutes, at least one of these felt a little too familiar from the wrong side. The favor you brought up again later. The sigh you made sure was audible. The warmth you turned down a few degrees to make a point. I am not going to tell you that makes you a manipulator. Everybody alive has pulled one of these levers because they work, and we are all raised in rooms where they were being pulled. The difference between a person and a predator is not the lever. It is whether you noticed, whether you felt something about it, and whether you did it again on purpose. You get to answer that one alone. So put the 4 moves on the table one last time. A favor that prints an invoice, a small yes that hires your self-image against you, guilt delivered as weather, and warmth on a slot machine schedule. 4 moves, 1 purpose, to get an outcome out of you without ever making a request you could openly refuse. Here is what defense actually looks like, and it is smaller than you think. You do not need to become cold. You do not need to trust nobody. You need one habit. When you feel that strange fog that I somehow owe them, and I cannot explain why feeling, stop and ask one question. What was the request? Say it out loud if you have to. If there was no open request, but you feel pressure anyway, the pressure was manufactured. And a manufactured feeling deserves exactly none of your obedience. The second habit is slower but stronger. Keep track of how you feel after time with somebody, not during. During can be faked. A skilled person can make during feel amazing. After does not lie. If you consistently leave somebody feeling smaller, guilty, or strangely tired, your body has finished the analysis before your brain agreed to run it. You do not need a diagnosis to act on that data. You are allowed to protect your energy on evidence your body collected. Manipulation only works in the fog. It cannot survive being said out loud. That is the entire weakness of the entire craft. The person who names the move calmly, without anger, just "I noticed the sigh," is somebody a manipulator quietly stops calling, not because they got beaten, because you stopped being cheap. This one was for everyone who keeps getting dressed after hearing the words, "You don't have to come. You do not have to go." And you never owed them the explanation either.